9, Graham Hunter is with us this morning. Graham, good morning to you. How are you?
All right, Ger.
The Casemiro thing seems a bit left field. In retrospect, does it make a bit of sense for Real Madrid to cash in on an ageing star and replace him with somebody much younger for a relatively similar price?
No, I don't think it did. I think it'll cost them the league at the end of this season. I don't think they cashed in. Once they were presented with Casemiro saying to them, I want to leave, something that he'd been trailing at since the end of last season. He hadn't said, I'm out of here, that's it. He had said that he wanted a new challenge. It's a pretty intricate story, given that the firm that represents Casemiro is run by the former Real Madrid Director of Communications, Oscar Ribot. Florentino Perez's son has from the outset been associated with that firm. He's been, an extended part of that firm. So it's an operation where I suspect they were allowed to go and seek out a buyer because Casemiro had made, I think, pretty close to an irrevocable decision that if the right opportunity came along, he would go. There's been a lot of talk at Real Madrid since he left about how disappointed his fellow players are that he's gone. Not disappointed in him, but that they keenly feel what will be a sense of loss because of his importance. Both Florentino Perez and Carlo Ancelotti said, look, Casemiro has earned the right over the years to say, this is my time to go. And that's a brilliant, elegant way to run a football club if you think you can afford to. Their gamble is that Modric and Kroos and Valverde plus Camavinga and Tchouaméni will mean that they can assume the loss. And at that stage, I can answer your question and say, that is great money for a player who's 30 plus, except for the fact that, look at Modric, he's 37 and still playing. Whether there's 7 more great years in Casemiro is a slightly different question. But they've made good money on a deal that they were pushed into making.
Okay. He seems like... in terms of you talk about the teammates being disappointed that he's gone, he seems like a student of the game, a good footballer, a decent person. I mean, I'm extrapolating here, but what can you tell us about that kind of stuff?
I like him. It's not always the case that the image you have of a footballer when you study them or you co-commentate about them marries up with what you find when you meet them. And then when you meet them, when you interview them, doesn't mean that you know their full personality or their full life. We must never fall into that trap. But when I've met and interviewed Casemiro 3 or 4 times, I've found him deeply interesting. Once he commits to an interview, he's committed. He'll talk properly. He'll listen. He'll answer. As far as his personality is concerned, in terms of what it meant to Real Madrid, he carries a very strong reputation that he was one of those leaders without the armband, that he was consistently committed to excellence. There were 1 or 2 who said that the arrival of Tchouaméni would help sharpen him up, would help keen his senses to raise his performance. After the defeat of Eintracht Frankfurt in Helsinki to win the UEFA Super Cup, everybody was saying, look at Casemiro, look at how immediately he's become competitive again because he was outstanding man of the match. Valverde just heaped eons of praise on him after that game, and he was a standout footballer that night. Turned out that was his goodbye. That was his sign-off performance. I think in terms of student of the game, Ger, I genuinely think he's a brilliant reader. Often we talk about how people read a game in terms of how they read the threats from the opposition, but an awful lot of that, if you don't play it in a rigorous system, like for example, at the one end of the scale would be peak Rafa Benitez, peak Pep Guardiola, where the system dominates, where you must do as I've told you, and we've trained this, and it needs to be almost like Strictly Come Football. But Ancelotti's Madrid is completely different. There's a lot of jazz solos in the midfield. Ancelotti said halfway through last season, I don't go and give instructions to Modric and Kroos and Casemiro. What have I got to tell them? They know how to play football. So reading the game in Casemiro's case was very much reading, when does Modric want to go? Is he pressing? Is he running with the ball? Where do I go? If Modric has dropped back, do I step up and leave Modric to cover? It's a little bit what happened in the Champions League final. Casemiro's role is only an axis. It's not genius-like. But when Modric drops deep and releases the ball, Carvajal and Casemiro link up in midfield. Casemiro's taking a step forward. He releases Valverde. Off they go, and Vinicius scores. He's a very, very good footballer. And I think that the test will be that he's going into an extremely different situation. He's working for a manager of completely different mindset than Ancelotti now. And he's also helping, scoop water out of if not a sinking rowing boat, given how they played against Liverpool, then certainly a rowing boat that's carrying too much water in it at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. Graham, just a couple of other things to touch on. The Barcelona situation, obviously it's been something that's rumbled on all summer. The Aubameyang departure and the registration issue with Jules Koundé. These two things are linked, are they, Graham? And how soon do you expect them both to be sorted?
Yeah, for once we've got crystal clarity on this. La Liga have told Barcelona that there will be no more selling off future assets, no more equity release in order to register Jules Koundé. They have to either take in good transfer revenue or, because it can clearly be both depending on who you sell, decrease their salary outgoings, and therefore it has to be a relatively senior player, whether it be Memphis Depay or Aubameyang, whose wages were, when he signed on freedom of contract, because let's not forget he was completely free to Arsenal, rescinded his contract. He came for no cost. He came on a very low initial wage deal until the end of the season, but then his wages went back up to Arsenal levels as of the 1st of July this summer. And therefore, albeit that he scored last night against Manchester City, albeit that while this current version of Xavi's team is bedding in, Barcelona fans might feel a little bit remorseful that it's not Aubameyang playing, say, instead of Rafinha or Dembele, because last season when he clicked, his pace and his finishing power looked really special for Football Club Barcelona. And if he goes, there'll be those who are saying, well, that's a real asset in terms of winning trophies this season. They've gone, but it's essential. Otherwise, Koundé, who played last night and played well against City in a friendly, it isn't registered. And there's absolute crystal clarity about that issue too, that if Koundé isn't registered by the time the 1st of September comes around and the market closes, then he'll be a free agent and another club will pick up an absolute wonderful bargain.
All right. I didn't realise that. Wow. I mean, so obviously...
Jerry, you sign for a club and they can't register and the market's closed. What are you going to do if you're a world-class footballer with a World Cup coming up? Sit around until January and say, that's fine, I needed a couple of weeks off. So Barcelona either register him by the end of the market or they lose him.
Wow. Okay. Well, does that mean something's going to happen? Is there any? The one of the papers this morning is reporting that Liverpool are the latest team to be linked to Frankie de Jong. Is that situation not fixable in this window, and so therefore we should just assume that de Jong will still be a Barcelona player in a week's time?
That's a question which is beyond all our ken, because de Jong should leave for his own career, in terms of how much football he's likely to get across the season, in terms of the fact that he's got a World Cup to think about and an easy group for the Netherlands to get out of. But it's now not about whether Barcelona can force him out or how much any club, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester United, want to. At the moment, he's completely committed to staying, and he's been robust about. And this is where I worry a little bit, because I don't think he's at full tilt in terms of his contribution to the team, in terms of his football development, in terms of his physical development. He still looks like the milk-fed teenager he did when he arrived. He hasn't changed at all. He hasn't followed the lessons that Iniesta and Xavi and Messi showed him. About, like, if you're a slender footballer or a small footballer, then make sure that you maximise your ability to hold off other footballers and gain just that half a yard, and he hasn't done that. His talents, of which there are many, are being obscured by the carry-on around him, the farage around him, and really, my feeling is that he's in a comfort zone. He loves his money. The previous president paid him an obscene amount of money when elongating his contract. It was just a stupid piece of business. His girlfriend, soon-to-be wife, wants to live here. They bought a new house. Sympathise with all of that, because they're human beings. They're not just commodities. But the world of football is often a pretty pragmatic one, and if he's not in a comfort zone, then I'm Chairman Mao.
Just one other bit of business that looks like it's set to be done possibly in the next few hours is Alexander Isak to Newcastle United. You would have seen a lot more of him possibly than the rest of us at club level anyway. Graham, how much is this guy going to bring to the Premier League?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with buying potential, and that's all that Newcastle are buying right now. Tremendously quick. Been playing elite football or top level football since he was practically just passing 15. So he's been in pressure situations for 7 years now. Last season wasn't simply bad luck or poor assist play around him by Real Sociedad. He dropped his level significantly last season, missing chances on a repeated basis and scoring, I don't know what, across the season, 6 or 8, something like that. I can't explain why last season was such a backward step for him, but he's very, very quick. If you look around the way that Willett plays and San Maximin plays and Bruno Guimaraes plays, Newcastle play at pace. I don't think they want to be a counter-attack team every single week, but often they will be. Isak will be able to be there for players that make a quick break under Eddie Howe. And as somebody who's met Eddie Howe, interviewed him, and somebody who lost Ryan Fraser from Aberdeen at a very young age to Eddie Howe's team then in the second division, I was so ticked off. And then I looked at Ryan Fraser once he'd been under Eddie Howe's tutelage, and he changed out of all recognition. Isak may be going for a huge amount of money and there may be a lot of pressure on him. But one of the things I hope to see is Eddie Howe just easing out the last gauche parts of a promising footballer's armoury. It's a gigantic price, and it's money that, it's the owners. I wouldn't be going to play for Newcastle if I was Isak, given who owns them. But good luck to him.
Like the sound, like you're making sounds here as if like the potential really is huge. He's kind of been blown off course a little bit.
No. If I give him that, I want to draw back. There is no doubt that he is an exciting striker. There is no doubt that he's got a decent brain. I've met him, I've interviewed him, and think there's a smart enough person in there. There is lots of potential, but I'd be very surprised if he hits the ground and by Christmas we're talking about somebody who's knocked in 10 or 12 goals. Good luck to him. I hope he does. But last season was one of those where you look and you think, well, why has your concentration dropped so badly? Why are you skewing shots left and right or over that previously at minimum you were putting between the 3 posts? So there's something that maybe only he can explain personally about what was going on in his head. He's an exciting footballer, and those Newcastle fans, genuinely, every club is proud of their fans. They are extraordinary. May they be the wind beneath his wings. May he flourish. Good luck to him. But they're buying potential rather than a made man.
Graham, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Cheers. It's Graham Hunter giving us some thoughts there.